3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
All right, welcome to Roots of Reality. I'm your host, Ben Baumann, and today I'm going to be talking about the history of the rich and influential. So throughout human history, one's wealth has always been a game changer in terms of societal influence, because ultimately, whoever has the most money in society has a huge advantage in terms of power. In turn, when people of great wealth decide to use their money to wield influence, this can potentially harm society as a whole, because you just don't know how people are going to use their influence, for bad or for good. So now, just to highlight this ongoing dilemma historically, I'm going to point out a few different figures in history that have caused a negative impact in the world due to their enormous wealth, as well as how this issue continues to this very day with many modern, ultra-wealthy people. So just starting off, we have Henry Ford. If the name Ford sounds familiar, it is because he was the founder of the famous car manufacturer, the Ford Motor Company, in 1903, and would become quite rich. Now, the Ford Company has obviously made many contributions to American society in terms of car manufacturing. However, Henry Ford was also unfortunately known for his discrimination against Jews. In fact, in 1918, he bought a newspaper called the Dearborn Independent in the state of Michigan and used it to promote anti-Jewish conspiracy theories all over the country via Ford dealerships. These conspiracy theories would essentially blame Jews for all sorts of problems in the world, and he would also go on to republish the infamous conspiratorial book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was this anti-Jewish work created originally in Russia. And obviously today, as we can see all around the media, anti-Semitism continues to be alive and well, unfortunately, across the United States. Next, there is the writer L. Ron Hubbard, who would get rich from creating the Church of Scientology. The Church of Scientology, in fact, today is worth over $1 billion, making it one of the most wealthy religious organizations in the world, and it additionally operates in over 150 countries. Now, despite referencing science in its name, Scientology promotes various pseudoscientific ideas regarding the human mind and body. Additionally, the Church of Scientology has been criticized for decades for being a cult and controlling its members. This has resulted in the organization for years trying to do a lot of damage control and gain powers of influence to really get a grasp of the narrative regarding the church and its activities. This has even included, even trying to infiltrate the United States government in 1979. So, they're a little sensitive about criticism there. And so, as you can see, there is a history of this sort of thing happening again and again, whether it's L. Ron Hubbard or Henry Ford or many other different rich people throughout history. Yet today, especially with the influence of social media and the various digital communications we have in general, there are so many different ways for the uber rich to influence people beyond a car company or a religious organization that they may be in control of. For example, there is Mark Zuckerberg, who got rich from creating Facebook, which, though it is a platform that everybody uses basically, with many benefits and a brilliant invention, it's quite vulnerable to being a target of foreign governments like Russia, which have used the platform in the past to sort of promote this informational warfare type of thing to cause divisions in American society, ultimately with the goal of weakening American democracy. And this stuff happened under Mark Zuckerberg's watch as the owner and founder of Facebook. So there's certainly plenty of criticisms that you can have from Mark Zuckerberg's influence on American society because of his inability to help prevent his platform from being used in negative ways. After all, there's the famous line, with great power comes great responsibility, and that's something he failed on in terms of preventing that type of issue. Another billionaire with influence is Oprah Winfrey, who has used her fame and fortune to promote a bunch of pseudoscience ranging from false medical practices to paranormal ideas like psychics on her television show. And then there is Elon Musk, who is famous for building SpaceX, and Tesla, who would use the wealth that he acquired from his businesses to buy Twitter, now known as X. As a result, the platform, which is much like Facebook, has been an incredibly influential tool for people. This platform, though, under Elon Musk, has dealt with many issues. Not that it didn't have many issues before, but Elon Musk's own personal use of the platform has been quite odd. He's used this to promote things like Russian propaganda regarding the war in Ukraine, and also maintains a too close for comfort relationship with the Chinese government due to his business ties, which can be somewhat concerning for people. And lastly, he's also promoted various conspiracy theories on the platform, whether it's about Jews in the United States and their influence and power in the world, or COVID-19. And then finally, there is also perhaps the most famous billionaire in modern American history, and that is the former American president, Donald Trump, who used his father's wealth to grow his family's real estate empire. And later, he would, of course, use this wealth, fame, and influence to eventually become president of the United States. His presidency was, without a doubt, one of the most polarizing ones in American history due to his authoritarian-like behavior and really his inability to handle any criticism regarding his endless list of outlandish statements that he routinely makes to this day. However, one important thing that did come about in terms of Donald Trump's time as president is how he did shine a light on how out of touch many politicians are when it comes to working class rural Americans. This was obviously an issue that was brewing for a long time, and the divisiveness between Democrats and Republicans in the country, in the political system, has been something that's been brewing for a long time. And so in many ways, Trump kind of exploited this issue and took it a step further, but it was an issue of his creation. And the problem is that, rural working class Americans make up a big chunk of the American population. When you have all these communities that have been in decline for decades, that, really feel like they've been abandoned. And obviously those things are complex. In some ways they have been, in some ways they haven't been. But regardless, this makes them susceptible to an authoritarian-like figure because they fear their way of life is under threat. And all politicians care about, it seems, are the urban centers of the country. Logically, because that's where most people are and most voters. That's where the media organizations are run out of. There no longer are even local newspapers in many towns across America. And so Trump took advantage of that. He saw an opportunity there. But unfortunately, instead of really helping these people by doing things that can help them preserve their communities while at the same time adjust for the way that technology continues to revolutionize American society, Trump would instead offer various false promises and indoctrinated many people with various conspiracy theories, which has radicalized a lot of people, who commit crimes on his behalf, especially regarding his conspiracy theory about the 2020 election and how it was rigged against him, which, obviously there's no evidence for. And, people are doing drastic things because of their belief in him as this sort of savior-like figure. And this is an ongoing thing that is still happening today. Obviously, 2024 elections coming up. And he's still using this idea and his platform to tell people that, if he doesn't get elected, then essentially it's the end of their lives. And if he is elected, then he can continue his pursuit of this authoritarian-like agenda to really test the guardrails of American democracy. So given this history of the rich and powerful having so much potential opportunity to harm society, why do we find ourselves in this position where a single person from any part of the political spectrum can have a negative impact? And the reality is, it comes from the lack of government regulation in the United States, as well as our cultural obsession with celebrities. There's no question that we should be careful about empowering a government, especially if a government is controlled by an authoritarian-like person. But American government has never really been that way. The government is mostly filled with harmless people that don't earn much money, who are just doing their jobs to provide for their families. In reality, it's the extreme politicians who get all this media attention and say things that divide people via these fiery statements. These are the people that you should be worried about, because their mindset is divide and conquer. Their mindset's not, how can I build a better society where we can all get along and be successful together? As for celebrities, though, there is no question that entrepreneurs who have gotten rich have done lots of good in American history. I mean, the United States of America is the most innovative nation in world history. But everything needs balance. Thus, to fix this issue, the United States needs to prevent extremely wealthy people from using their enormous wealth to create an outsized influence in society. For example, ensuring that companies and ultra-wealthy individuals cannot lobby politicians so much. By improving the campaign finance system, by creating restrictions on how much money people can lobby politicians with, which is essentially legal bribes. Because currently the super rich can throw as much money as they want at a politician, who will then use this money to fund their campaign to stay in power. And obviously, if you have enormous amounts of money, that means more time on TV and more time trying to convince people to vote for you. And at the end of the day, just having name recognition plays a huge role in politics. Additionally, this cultural mentality of celebrity worship really needs to go. It's one thing to look up to people and think like, oh, I really like this person's work. But it's another thing to think that this person's like this godlike figure that you should be worshiping. You know, there's a balance that can be had there. And just because a person is rich or famous does not mean they are better than you. It doesn't mean they are smarter than you. So, and especially don't assume that these people are experts on everything that comes out of their mouth just because they're rich and famous. Because most of the time, they really have no clue what they're talking about. They didn't become rich and famous because their understanding of politics or history or geopolitics or philosophy or science. They didn't. They became rich and famous because of the business they built or some talent that they have in the world of entertainment. And most of these people also have little education on things beyond their businesses in general. In fact, many of them don't even have a bachelor's degree, and if they, or more than a bachelor's degree. And this includes people like Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Mark Zuckerberg, and Donald Trump. However, because these people were so successful with their business, their ego has convinced themselves that they know more than they really do. However, to be truly educated, we all know that that's not something that you can just buy. Sure, you can bribe your way for a degree in some countries around the world, but that doesn't make you an expert on something. And so to become an expert on something, it really takes not just the opportunity to study, which may be benefited by having money to, go and study at school, but also you have to be someone who's really dedicated and passionate about a subject. These people are very passionate about themselves and their businesses, which is fine, but that doesn't make you an expert on things beyond that. And unfortunately, fame and fortune is very much like a drug. People become addicted to the attention, and thus they're always wanting more influence and more money that can drive their fame further. Thus, in many ways, instead of being gracious and happy, many uber-rich people can often be sometimes just miserable because they are never satisfied with who they are or what they've accomplished. And they've kind of enslaved themselves to this never-ending appetite for more money and more power. And that's just not what life is about. Sure, money is important, but if you're going to be basically a slave to it, and that's all you live for, what's the point? After all, I think it's much better to have this big historical perspective on things, where we recognize, we are simply a species on a giant rock orbiting a star in a solar system amongst billions of other solar systems in a galaxy amongst billions of other galaxies in a universe and whatever the hell is beyond our universe. Because the point is, at the end of the day, we're lucky to be here. Our time is short. Sure, earn enough money to take good care of yourself and your family so you don't have to worry about that. But whether you're rich or not, use the rest of your time. Use your time regardless to also chase whatever dreams you have or whatever experiences you want to have. Because no matter how many people know your name or how much money you have sitting in your bank account, it's not going to mean much when you're dead. What will mean much, though, is that final time that you look in the mirror at yourself before you die and being able to look yourself in the eye and think to yourself that you had a life full of incredible memories. That's something that money can never buy. It can help create if you have the right mentality to use it that way. But otherwise, that's just on you and how you want to live your life. So with that, try not to get too distracted by the rich and famous and influential. Because though they can be, fascinating individuals, they can also potentially do a lot of harm. And don't forget, as always, remember, billions of years led to you. So make the most of it.